let's get back to Nigeria. Something happened recently. We started hearing in the news that French soldiers who were kicked out of Niger Republic, out of Chad, and out of Burkina Faso have found a way to some parts of northern Nigeria, and that the government of Nigeria was now in cahoots with these guys to resettle them in Nigeria just by the border between Nigeria and Niger Republic from where they had been kicked out. And when this was happening, there was a guy on X who quickly went and posted a video and said, oh, this is the proof that French soldiers were in Nigeria. We all thought that was the case. It turned out that was fake. It wasn't real. It's not as if there were no foreign soldiers on ground, but it wasn't French soldiers. We finally found a follow-up video that indicated that the video he thought was for French soldiers was actually British military personnel who were in northern Nigeria, actually, for training, they said. Okay? Military boots on ground. They said they were there for training, for logistics and all kinds of stuff. I watched the video myself. Now, after the guy who posted that video and said it was a French military group on ground in Nigeria had deleted the video, just few days after he did that, the current president of Niger Republic now went public, granted interview to a radio station or TV station in his country, and now alleged openly that Nigeria was working with France to destabilize not just Niger Republic, but the entire Sahel region. He said he could vow that French soldiers were already in Nigeria, in northern Nigeria, and he began to name names of the locations where they are. This is the current president, Chani Abdurrahmani of Niger Republic. And this began to trend all over the place. And people began to wonder, how can Nigeria? We all know the dark and evil colonial legacies of France on the continent of Africa. Even an unborn child knows what France has done to Africa. Even French people themselves know what their oligarchs have done to Africa. To the point that the former French president Jacques Chirac said, let's face the fact, if it were not for Africa, that France will go back to the ranks of the third world countries, meaning that whatever France is today, whatever it is based on the resources they steal and exploit out of Africa. I have done a two-part video in the past to explain in great details the whole breakdown of how the French neo-colonial policies work on the continent of Africa, which is why the French colonies in Africa are the poorest of all the colonies in the whole continent. They are the most humiliated. They are the most dumbed down. They are the most oppressed of all the colonies in Africa. France's colonial legacy is darker than the darkness in the pit of hell. And this is why every time France is kicked out of Africa, Africans are unanimous in rejoicing, in their joy and their celebration over that news. That's why we all join our hands together to fight. When ECOWAS was coming up to say, oh, we are going to use military intervention to restore Bazoum, the pro-French, pro-Western president that was there before Chani came to power. And we said, never, you will not try it. People all over Africa were up in arms and said it would not happen. ECOWAS was really planning to launch a military intervention in Niger to restore a pro-Western candidate or president that never cared about his people, that ensured that the uranium and all the precious materials that God blessed the nation with, that they were all siphoned to France. Never ever in his life did he think there was any need to nationalize the wealth of the country, which was what led to the coup. And the people massively supported that coup. When we fought, ECOWAS grew cold feet and pulled back. At that time, Tinubu had just become the President General of ECOWAS. Remember when that happened, for those of you who followed the news, France was livid. Macron was angry. His tone changed. He couldn't understand why ECOWAS would pull back from that obligation to satisfy the dark appetites of the colonial master France. Because ECOWAS, I can say this without any fear of contradiction, ECOWAS has no history of fighting for West Africans. These bodies you see are there to serve the purpose of the colonial masters. They have nothing to do for the ordinary African. Nothing. Zero. Put me anywhere, anytime. And that's why nobody loves ECOWAS. And I don't think any African is going to love them because they have now been outed as tools of neo-colonialism on the continent of Africa. And so we said no. And they pulled back. And France was angry. And when France was angry, the next thing we saw was that our Bola Ahmed Tinubu was moving up and down. He was going to Paris, coming back, coming back. People began to rumor, this man must be going to appease this guy. He must be going to tell Macron to calm down. I got this. Calm down. I got this. One trip after another. And then not too long after, just several months after into his administration, we now began to hear that French troops were on ground. And the man who posted about it used a fake video. And shortly after he posted the fake video, the president of Niger now came out openly on a national television and said, yes, they are actually in Nigeria. And they are working with the current president of Nigeria. Now, if you are a spectator, a bystander, and you start hearing things like this, given the foreknowledge that we already have about what transpired when France wanted ECOWAS to intervene militarily in Niger, what would you be thinking the moment you hear that, they are actually Nigerian? Easily, you will just believe it. You will just believe it. Because why wouldn't they be in Nigeria? Maybe that's the reason why all of a sudden the Macron who was angry with Tinubu suddenly became best of pals with Tinubu. Did you see what happened recently when he went there? They rolled out the red carpet. It was so, I've never seen, I don't remember the last time France received the leader of an African nation like that. It was unbelievable. Everybody was talking about it in the media. What is happening between these two? How can a nation like Nigeria in Africa be having such beautiful cordial relationship with a colonial master that has such a terrible legacy on the continent of Africa? And shortly after that, people now began to say, oh, so now we see why. Because if there was no compensation for the loss in Niger, France would not have received Tinubu the way they received Tinubu. Macron wouldn't have been so cozied up to Tinubu the way he was at that reception. This was probably a way of saying, thank you so much, my good friend, for actually replenishing what we had lost in Niger. So now you understand why everybody would be suspicious. Why many people, because in my post on X, I said, based on all that we have, I placed the card on the table for everyone. And I now said, who do you believe? Because the moment Chiane came and laid that allegation, the Nigerian government denied it. The Ministry of, is it information or something, came out and said it's a lie. Those things don't exist, which is normal. I now asked my people who follow me on X, I say, who do you believe? 99.9% say they believe the Niger Republic leader over Nigeria. Does that make any sense to you? Because people have followed the track record of those who are involved in this. Who is it that has the best intention for the African continent and for their people? Who is it that is actually doing things to support or maybe to please the colonial masters? And who is it that is doing something to please the masses? People who are watching know exactly who these guys are. So when that conversation began to gain momentum, I now said to myself, there is something that I have to say about this. And that's part of why I am making this video. And that thing that I want to say is, I want to attempt to do some dot connection for you. You know, I like to connect dots a lot, okay? I'm sorry that this is going to be probably a long video, but it's worth it. So I need you to come with me. Please stay with me. Many of you remember what happened in Nigeria when there was a protest against hunger in Nigeria. Just recently, some months ago, there was a massive protest all over. Protest against hardship, hunger, and the rest of it. And during that protest, something very significant and historic happened. We saw that elements in the north of Nigeria were screaming that the military should take over power from Nigeria, from Tinubu. We saw the video, right? You saw it, right? It was all over the place. And not only that, we saw masses of people in northern Nigeria waving Russian flag. It wasn't just in one place. From Kano to Kaduna to Bauchi to Sokoto, different places that you didn't even see in the media. People went on the streets waving Russian flags. How? Nobody in the south had even a Russian flag, let alone one to wave. But what happened that these other people in their numbers were waving the flags? Did it just happen during the protest? No. Here's how I connect my dots, and I want to do it with you. You remember that there has been rumors that Buhari is from Niger Republic. I don't know which is which. I don't have any verification. But Buhari got an approval, 30 billion naira or so, to build a road from Nigeria to Niger Republic, right? They were even talking about railway as well to Niger Republic. There were so many things that he did to show his proximity to Niger Republic. And we know that most of the people in that part of Nigeria share the same culture and tradition with those in Niger Republic, obviously. So when Niger Republic situation happened and the coup took place and Chani came to power, something happened to me. I said to myself, what if the guys on the other side of the border are also wishing for and planning for something like this to happen? It was just a wild guess in my head. And I went back and remembered during the election in 2023, which was way before this coup happened in Niger, that there were plans by the Buhari admin to move Nigeria towards the BRICS alliance. Remember BRICS? BRICS is the alliance that provides us with a multipolar alternative to the unipolar world we have all been born into. I've explained this in so many videos. So he was moving more towards the BRICS very quietly, clandestinely. In fact, many believe that he had already sealed the deal to move Nigeria to BRICS and make Nigeria a permanent member of BRICS. But it wasn't going to be consolidated in his own term in office. He needed someone who was in the same boat with him to carry it out. And that was why there were rumors that Buhari wanted Osinbajo to be the next president. In fact, Osinbajo went to him, and this day reported at some point that Buhari had given the best indication that he's actually going to endorse Osinbajo to become the president of Nigeria. But guess what happened? Because, if Osinbajo had become, that plan Buhari had to move Nigeria towards BRICS, which meant that Nigeria would now be allied with Russia, and that makes it easier for Nigeria to become another Niger Republic in the region. And when that happens, the British, like France, will lose Nigeria permanently forever. Then what happened? All of a sudden, Baba Tinubu roared like a lion from wherever. And the way he came to the primary, he won such a landslide in the primary that it didn't even look as if Osinbajo was on the ticket, was on the list at all. Every other person was mighty distant from his win. How? Why did that happen? Sagacity? Maybe. But don't you think that the people who own Nigeria had seen what was coming? That they were about to move Nigeria towards Russia, and have vowed that the North had betrayed them by making that move. For you to know that there was a plan early enough to move Nigeria towards BRICS and towards Russia, the sensitization that led to the waving of the flags during the protest had been going on for several months, if not more than a year, before that protest happened. You can't just wake up one day and see people waving flags. You know how the Northerners behave. They go through their people on the ground. They were sensitizing all of them one by one. The people were so psychologically ready and prepared to become another Niger Republic in the sub-region. A Niger that is allied with Russia and that has thrown the colonial master out of the window. And I'm pretty sure the intelligence agencies of Britain and some European countries saw that and decided we need to find somebody who will be sold out to us and our policies. And they found our brother and made him to win. Now, let me tell you what you're going to see happen. Pay attention, please. These things I'm telling you, you won't see them openly in the media. What is going to happen now in Tinubu's administration is that the North is going to pay the price for betrayal. If you look at when that waving of flag happened, during the arrests of those who protested, the focus was mostly on the fact that they were waving Russian flag. They called it treason. The government of the day took it very seriously to show you that this is the bone of contention. Took it very seriously. And those kids were picked up. Why were you waving Russian flag? That is felony, treason in our country. You are inviting the military to come and take over power. The same way it happened in Niger. So now, here's what is going to happen. You should expect all of this to happen. Number one, I just told you, the North is going to pay a huge price for betraying the colonial powers. Before I tell you the price the North is going to pay, let me tell you what the colonials did to make the North the most privileged and entitled and the endowed people in Nigeria over the decades. The superiority complex they bestowed upon the North was not hidden. It was not in secret. Everybody knew about it and no one could do anything about it. Let me tell you, there was even this rumor that the British Union Jack, the Union flag, their symbol of colonization of all the colonies they colonized, that when they lowered it during the fake independence they had in Nigeria, that they never took it back to Britain to show that they have given up sovereignty to Nigerians. They left it on Nigerian soil. It's a rumor. I've heard that rumor from many high-level people. They said that Union Jack is left in the Sokoto Caliphate or Sultanate, and that is kept there as a symbol that these people who are keeping it are the eyes and the faces of the British colonial masters in Nigeria. So when you see an Hausa Fulani man, you are looking at your master, your colonial master. And this is how I grew up knowing it. Whether the Union Jack is there or not, the one that you can never deny is the fact that we grew up knowing the Hausa Fulanis in Nigeria as the overlords, as the kings, as the masters, while everyone else is the slave. It was by design, because these ones, from one of my research books, the colonial masters, I think it was Lord Lugard who referred to them as the preferred race. They are the preferred race. They say these are the most loyal that they could ever find in the whole of Nigeria, because anything they told the Hausa Fulani man to do, they did it. And so they adopted them as their face, as their proxy rulers of Nigeria. So every rulership they had went through these people. That's why the largest number of oil wells, oil that is in the southern part of Nigeria, that belongs to southern part of Nigeria, but of course belongs to the British. They tell you it is in our land, but the British own it. That same oil, a greater percentage of the oil wells, maybe 80-something%, belongs to the same northerners, the Hausa Fulani northerners. Surprised? Is that coincidence? That is why they made sure that there was something called quota system in Nigeria. The Northerners were given the right of first refusal in both education and employment. A Northern kid will go to school and take JAMB exams with a Southerner. The same questions. The Northerner will score a cutoff mark of, say, maybe 120. A Southerner will score cutoff mark of 150 and will be denied admission into the university. But the Northerner who got 100 or 120 is given admission into the university to study the same exact course, and they took the same exam. Cutoff mark in the South, probably about 300 and something. The one for the Northerners, maybe about 150, half of it. And there's the same exam, the same educational system, the same everything. And when they even come out of school, the Southerner does far better, more eminently qualified. But the one who is far less qualified from the North is considered number 1, 2, 3, 4, and maybe the 5th before they now think about the Southerner who is qualified, graduated in flying colors. Quota system. You think about the North first, think about them second, think about them third, fourth, before you then even begin to think of the Southerner. Federal employment. The same thing in the security agencies, the military. They have the largest number in all these places by design. These are things that they use to fortify the North to make them the real overlords representing the British in Nigeria. And here's another one. Taxes. You see why there's a problem with the tax right now? Tax reform. Did you see what the tax reform contains? Tax reform implies that whatever you generate from your region is what you're going to eat from. Before now, as at this moment that we speak, taxes generated in southern Nigeria, Lagos gives us the largest amount from tax in the whole country. All that money is shared to local governments in northern Nigeria, to different places in the north and other parts of the country. In the north, they have Sharia law in most of the north, and they don't drink beer. And taxes that are paid on beer, on liquor in southern Nigeria are sent to local governments and communities in northern Nigeria so that they can share from it in something they have even prohibited in the region. Oil is in southern Nigeria. A larger share of the allocation coming from oil is in northern Nigeria. We even have this report some time ago that the greatest and the strongest political cartel in the north is the cartel that is in charge of creating fictitious local governments where there is no need for. They create it because the money is shared based on the number of local governments you have in your state. So they have this cartel that creates different local governments. A place that's supposed to have like 10 local governments, they will create like 20 something. You can imagine a particular state in the north earning more money than the oil producing areas in southeast and south. And they don't have a tiny little drop of oil in their soil. This was all by design. Barefaced, not hidden. Everyone saw this happening, but no one could do anything because the British had anointed these people to become their faces, their eyes in Nigeria. And then that's why today the tax reform bill is being resisted in the north. Ferociously, aggressively resisted in the north. What is the next thing? You're going to see this one come up very soon. Census. Have you thought about census? As a human being growing up in Nigeria, whether you're 50 or 10 or 20 or whatever, have you ever seen census done right in Nigeria? I have never in all my years, and I'm going to be 50 by February 4th. In all these years, I have never ever in my life seen census done right in Nigeria. It's always been very corrupt, wishy-washy kind of stuff. They just come up and concoct some numbers and tell you, apportion numbers to different locations and tell you this is how it is. Things that don't make sense. And this is why most of us in the eastern Nigeria decided we are not going to take part in census, because what you're doing is not census. You are just playing games, stupid, silly games. If you want to do census, you do it right. And if you do the census right, you will find out that what Nigeria is promoting, because Nigeria happens to be probably the first place I've seen in my life where population is higher in the arid region as opposed to in the wetlands. This is how we grew up and this is how we've been knowing it. They tell us that there are more people in northern Nigeria than in southern Nigeria that is a wetland. And north is arid. That is defying all the principles of geography that I have learned in my life. And we have to accept that. It's also all by design. That's why I say, as things are being exposed now, you're going to see this one come up again in 2025. The issue of population census. Don't be surprised that they are going to now have a new census to now reveal the actual number of people, the actual population of the north of Nigeria. And why are all of this being exposed? Because these were, like when you install a king. If you want to install me a king now, I might wear this thing to enter into the palace. But when I come out, this is not what I'm going to wear. There are too many things that will be put on me. The regalia that will make me royalty. All of it will be put on me. Now, when you strip me of all those and take them away and I walk out of that palace, I'm an ordinary person. People would see me on the road. They wouldn't even see that. So the West, the British, are now technically and carefully stripping the North of every single royal apparel, all the royal regalia and the paraphernalia of royalty, of superiority, of privileges that they put upon them for all these decades. They are stripping them of all of them. For what? For daring to betray the trust of the British. So all the power structure, all the control structure that they bestowed upon the Hausa Fulani, they are relocating all of them now to Western Nigeria. Mr. Tinubu is the forerunner now of that relocation. So they're moving all the structure to him because they feel, okay, since we can't trust you, the next one to trust is now Western Nigeria. And so the power brokers will no longer be the Northerners. The Westerners will now become the power brokers in Nigeria. So anybody who wants to become anything in government, you have to get the backing of the Westerners, as opposed to what it used to be, that if you would become anything, you had to get the backing of the Northerners. And in each one of these places, the British is behind the shadows, running and controlling everything. Now, here is the dilemma. The dilemma that I see is that the North had been over-empowered through the years. The North had been made so strong that even with all of this that the British is trying to do, which is actually for the good of the southern part of Nigeria, as you can see right now, Coastal Road is being built in Nigeria for the south. So many things that were not done to the southerners are being done now. There is development funds sent to the southern part of Nigeria. And this is all good news for the South, right? Very good news. But here is the dilemma. Because of how they have made the North to become strong over the years, the North is going to fight back. And they're not just going to be fighting back alone. They're going to fight back with the help from their brothers in the Sahel. And that will spell massive doom for Nigeria. Because the Sahel States are no longer part of ECOWAS. And they have become extremely strong because after chasing France out, they had made policies that basically transformed their economy. They have made policies that turned their economies around, and they have become so powerful nowadays. This is why Nigeria has to tread very carefully. In view of what has happened, I do not see a proper election in 2027. I see a massive war breaking out in Nigeria. But the problem is that I'm not even seeing it wait till 2007. It's even looking like it might happen before 2027. And this is why I said I'm going to make this video. The lesson in all of this, you see, this is the downside to the whole idea of divide and rule or divide and conquer. We all existed as independent nations in Nigeria before the British showed up and then forcefully amalgamated us. Why did they amalgamate 3 solid units that were incompatible? Because they know that if they do that, we will never be able to rise up together and fight against them. They knew too well that if they did that, there was no way on earth we would defeat them. They will always defeat us. And they have just shown it with this. Okay, so let's see this. I've explained to you all the privileges that the North was given. And most of us in the South didn't like this. We grew up with a lot of bitterness and anger towards the North for having this kind of privileges. They had access to so much in our backyard that we didn't have a single access to. There was so much, really. I'm talking about it. Many people even have the details more than me. But do you know that despite all the feelings, the resentment we had towards the North, that if the North had followed through with moving Nigeria to BRICS and aligning Nigeria with Russia, that would have been the beginning of freedom for all of us. But because there is incompatibility in the region, but because we already hated the North, the British will play it in a way that, let's make these guys now get power and expose all the things we had made the North to enjoy, so that will even fuel the anger the more and make them to stay on our side. So that's why you see everybody today saying, it sounds them right, nonsense. What were you people saying? What did you say when you were enjoying all of that? What did you say when you were leave Tinubu alone? Or don't talk anything about Tinubu, because you people had it for so many decades. So now, rather than looking at the brighter side, because that freedom was going to come from people that we hate, that we didn't like, because they saw the light and decided, oh, you know what? Enough of all this colonialism. Let's move Nigeria towards freedom. We now are turned against them because of what had been programmed in our head. We turn against that idea and that option. And so today, we are gloating over the fact that they are being punished, that this is happening to them and that is happening to them. But at the end of the day, when all of these have happened to the North, and the North has been stripped of all that power and all the superiority complex and the privileges they have from the British, and then it's bestowed on our brothers in the South, guess what happens? We are still under the feet of the British. It's not like after our brother has done all of these things now, and done all the roads and all the money and everything to the southern part of Nigeria, southeast, south, everywhere. It's not that after doing it, that we will now be free from the British colonial system. No, we're not. We actually get more entrenched into the British neo-colonial policies and the system. You see why it is difficult to ever have freedom when you bring parts that are incompatible together. This is the best definition in practical terms of divide and conquer or divide and rule. Because it is Buhari. Say, oh, look at that man that hated my people, that sent soldiers to go and kill our people. God punish him there. Let Tinubu do whatever he wants to do. But you forgot that this man may have seen the light and decided, you know what? This is what will work better for Nigerians. If we align with BRICS and align with Russia and kick the colonial powers, and Russia has never colonized any nation in the world. That's why they are able to successfully help African nations to regain their freedom today. If we had aligned with them, it would be so easy for every region to govern themselves in Nigeria. The North will govern themselves. The West, govern yourself. This one, govern. Let's become the United States of Nigeria, based on equal responsibility and equal respect agreement. We come together around the table. United Arab Emirates, are they not united? Are they not functioning as independent states, independent countries? If you are coming from Western Republic and you want to enter the Eastern Republic, you show only your ID card, not a passport, and you enter. If you are moving from Eastern, the Republic of Eastern or Biafra, or whatever you call it, and then you're moving to the Arewa or whatever they call themselves, you have only an ID card, not a passport. If you're coming from outside of the region, you show your passport. We can become United States, but it will be based on our own personal agreements. Our people will sit down around the table and agree this is how we want to be. If we are going to have a prime minister, let's have a prime minister, and the prime minister will have almost next to zero powers. Everything that we have on exclusive list today will go to the regions. Only very few items will be left on exclusive list. So the power at the center becomes completely weakened, almost like ceremonial, while the regions are thriving, generating their own thing, resources, generating income, and using it to take care of themselves. You will see there will be a healthy competition, and there will be this sense of freedom and independence that will just rest on all the regions. The British will never let this happen, because as far as they're concerned, they have bought and paid for Nigeria as an entity. To them, Nigeria is a business entity, is a company, not a country. And because of the way they have made us, look at the way we feel today. I see a Yoruba person doing, I'll get angry as an Igbo man. Yoruba will see Igbo, he will get angry. Igbo will see Hausa, they will get angry. Everybody hates everybody. They have finished us. They have bewitched us. We can't see eye to eye on so many issues anymore. And that's why it's so easy for them to move power. Let's give it to Yoruba. Yoruba say, yeah, it's our turn. Yes, it serves them right. Maybe they have been stealing all the oil. Now we are going to get the oil wells. You will see that most of the oil wells that were to the north, we move now towards the west and towards the south. And then, by extension, to the British, as usual. The north will be stripped. Remember and save this video. They will be stripped of all those privileges. But it's not going to end too well because they will fight back. And the fight is not going to be pretty. We need to wake up in Africa. We need to take back our brains from the British and from the colonials. They have used our brain too much for far too long. And we have let them for far too long. I feel like we need to start doing some serious soul searching and begin to take back what they have stolen from us. Nigeria is sitting on a keg of gunpowder. I am telling you this with all my heart. You've seen this Garus Gololo man every day, spitting fire and brimstone. We are going to vote him. Every day he is angry. He's talking about what is happening to the north, talking about how they are stripping the north, talking about how they are trying to pauperize the north and all of that. And people see those things and they rejoice because they're saying, look at you. You guys had all this power all along. You guys were this, were that, and all of that. Yeah. So why are you talking now? You should not complain. You see that? And look at what I'm telling you about Buhari can also happen to Tinubu today. Say, for instance, now Tinubu wakes up tomorrow and has an epiphany and says, you know what? I feel like these people are using us. We are going to deal with them. He now quietly begins to pull away from the British and now hand power over to our people. The British will come and take Tinubu and throw him in the dust and give power to an Igbo man and tell the Igbo man, you have to show these people that you didn't like all the things they've done to you people. If they take power from him at that moment and give it to an Igbo man, you will see how the Igbos will say, yeah, show them pepper. Is it not this Yoruba? They say, we keep fighting against ourselves. And the masters, so-called masters who are fools, but they think they are masters to only people who are foolish, not masters to me. They will sit there and be laughing at our ignorance. They play us. Once you don't do what they want you to do, they give power to the other person and tell the person to punish you. That's what is happening. So now you're going to see that everything that has to do with Yoruba is going to be at the forefront. Yoruba will be held like the fresh bride on the block. In fact, when you talk about Yoruba now on the international scene, you will see the names heard all over, promotion everywhere. The British is going to use the Yoruba to make the North jealous. Watch. Every aspect of life, they are going to use this because the only thing they know to do is tribal politics. That's the only way they hold us down. The day we overcome tribalism, it means we have killed British neo-colonial system in our midst. But it doesn't look like it's going to end very soon. That's why I am worried that what is going to come out of this is not going to bode well for anybody. And I hope and pray that we will tread with caution, even as we carry out all these policies. Because at the end of the day, when the chips are down, the British will not be there to experience what we are going to encounter in our midst. If war breaks out, the next available flight they are out, they will just be there using phone calls to coordinate what is happening and allow us to kill ourselves. They already want us to reduce population, so that will be an opportunity. We need to be wise. We need to tread with caution. With Niger president now talking about having the evidence that France is there and that they are using them to fight against the Sahel States. He didn't even say just Niger, but Sahel States. Mark my words, if the North decides to revolt, those guys are going to join the Northerners. In fact, they might even be the ones to provoke it to say, look, let's do. And Nigeria is too porous. Could this be the reason we even have the British now landing in northern Nigeria to make sure that they can forestall any plan to destabilize the country? Because any plan to destabilize will lead to them losing their hold on Nigeria. Could even be the reason why we have those British guys there saying that they are there for training. The Sahel States have become so powerful and strong. I'm telling you, it's not just because they have the backing of Russia. They have become very powerful, militarily and otherwise. Take it to the bank and cash it. It is true. And if they decide to come together to remove the threat that they believe Nigeria is putting by the border, I'm telling you, it's going to be the kind of war that nobody ever saw coming on the West African coast. And I pray that God will help us to avert this, because what I see is not looking good at all. Let us pray to God to save us from the workers of iniquity, because their plan against us has always been extermination. But if we can only think a little bit deeper and make connection with our inner selves, we will see exactly what plans they have and not just become overly selfish in our decisions and our actions. Please pray about this, that God will give those who are at the helm of affairs today the wisdom to navigate with caution and with so much wisdom. Once again, I want to wish you a very prosperous and happy new year. And I want to thank you for everything that you have done to support me, to support us through this year. All the prayers you poured in my direction, all the prayers you poured in the direction of Donald Trump becoming president. The Lord God Almighty is going to continue to reward and bless you and yours. And everything you lay your heart or hands upon, I'm telling you, they are going to prosper and prosper greatly. Happy 2025. God bless you.